I have too many things on my shelves and everything keeps falling off of my shelves. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with 30 books I'd like to read before I turn 30. Cue existential crisis. So, last month I turned 28, which had me thinking about, you know, future birthdays and so on. And so I thought what I would do is I have 2 years, a little less than 2 years before I turn 30. And I thought, let's do one of those 30 books I'd like to read before I turn 30 videos that I see kind of floating around with people who are close to 30. So I have a lot of books on this list, obviously. And I'm not doing like one spot is a series. Like if it's multiple books in a series, then that's like 5 whatever books it is. So let's just dive in. Some of these have good reasons as to why I want them on this list. Some of them don't. I also am like, this is a very like loose list. Like it's just more of a guideline than a like strict TBR as far as like what I'd like to get to. I don't know how much I'm actually going to read from this list. This is more just like a, like I said, guideline as far as like, this would be something fun to kind of like keep on the back burner to see if I can get these done. But these are some things I'd like to read before I turn 30. So let's dive in. The first 2 books on this list are part of the same series, and that is books 2 and 3 and the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin. So you have the Obelisk Gate and the Stone Sky. So this is a trilogy that I started, I think, a couple of years ago with the 5th season. I remember really enjoying it. I remember the ending being very surprising, but I don't remember what happened, so I need to find a synopsis. But I really need to read the other 2 in this series, but I think what happened is I heard some people love the first one like I did, and then not love the other 2 as much, and that kind of put it off for me. But this is like a relatively well loved higher fantasy, environmental fantasy kind of story, and I kind of want to know where it goes, you know, like I remember some bits from the first book and I remember thinking like, this is going to be incredible, like we're just going to keep going. And also the magic system in here I think is very different than a lot of things that I have seen, and I also haven't read anything by N.K. Jemisin, so I would love to finish these 2 because I feel like if you're a fantasy lover you have to have read this series. Okay, maybe not really, but you know, it's one of those very popular series, so I think I need to finish it up. The next one is just the first book in a series, but I would like to dive into the rest of the series as well, and that is True Wings. This is by Gracie Mitchell. It's the first in the Clan of the Archangel series, and this one is on here because this is actually someone that I went to high school with who has written her own series, and I think there's at least 2, maybe 3 out by now, but I picked this one up sometime last year thinking I was going to really dive into it. It's like fantasy, but I've never actually given it the time of day, so I would really love to dive into this one because A, I love her, and B, I really want to like support someone, and it sounds genuinely really, really good. So this book, from what I can tell, follows our main character, who I'm going to butcher her name, Atra, maybe? I'm sure that's wrong, but she is part of the clan of Archangel Michael, and there are seven Archangel clans, and they all are kind of like at each other's throats, I think. And then she's kind of thrust into like the political world that surrounds these clans and is trying to like mend fences and stuff like that. And I don't know if there's somebody else, but it sounds good. It's giving me like Crescent City vibes with like the whole Archangel situation. But the first one's called True Wings, the second one is called True Spirit, and I would really like to give this one a shot because I love an indie published book and it sounds very good. The next one is one that I am genuinely terrified for, and I have reasons why I bought this book, and I was part of a video project that is still kind of in the works, even though I started it last year. It's a hot mess. But this one is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Do you see how gigantic this book is? I do have the audiobook of this, which I think will be helpful. But It's super high fantasy, which is not my thing, but there's just something about it that sounds really good. I know that there's a second book in this series that's kind of like I think a prequel of sorts, but this was originally slated as like a standalone. I know there's been some issues with this book. I know some people have problems with it and like all of the fantastical elements in this book, but I know a lot of people who love this book, and I know that it is a matriarchal society, and that is why I picked it up. But I think I don't really know. It's this world, a fantasy world. Clearly there are dragons, which yay, but I think it's just all these people in this world coming together. That's what the map looks like, but it is huge, and that's why I'm scared. But I really want to get to this one. I really think that it would be good. I really think, I just want to know, you know, like I'm very interested to see if this is something that would be for me. So I would love to get to this one. Would love to get to it this year. We'll see if that ever happens, just because, like I said, there's a lot here, and I think it's going to take me a very long time to get through, because I'm going to have to, like, focus on it in order to really process what's going on. But this is the big chunk, and I'm terrified. Another one that I think is well loved, and I have not read yet, is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I have never read anything by Kristen Hanna, and this one is one that, like, everybody who has any interest in historical fiction raves about. I do know that it's set during, I think, one of the world wars, but I might have made that up. It's definitely set during a war. It's set in 1939, yeah. So we've got that setting, which is not my favorite, and I do believe it's like a sister relationship. Like, it's two women. I'm trying to remember if they're sisters or mother-daughter. I'm thinking they're sisters, just based on what it says here. I don't really know. It's set in France, so that is very interesting to me. But everyone who goes into this book sobs. So I just kind of want to know, you know, I've got 2 books by Kristen Hanna. I've never read anything by her, and I really want to give her the time of day, just to kind of understand what the hype around her is. And this one I think is her most loved. It's the one that I've heard the most about. So The Nightingale would be great to actually read. The next 8 are part of the same series, but I only have the first 4, which is fine, and that is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I have the first 3 in the prequel, so the first 4, Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. I love Sarah J. Maas. You guys know this. She is one of my faves. I have loved the Akatar series, I've loved the Jade City series, and this is the only series that I haven't read yet, but I feel like I need to read it. So this one I'm thinking is probably going to get read sooner rather than later as far as anything else on this list, because I'd love to read it before the newest Crescent City comes out, because I know that there is some crossover and some stuff, and I don't know this world at all. So I want to understand and see if any like hidden things that might be coming our way. But this one, from what I can tell, the series, well, I know it starts one way and then drastically changes throughout the series, because there are 8 books, but at least the first book, we follow our main character, Selena Sardathian, and she is part of this competition, I think. What the back sounds like for a vicious king that she cannot stand. She is an assassin, and I think that doing things for him is like, she's been in prison for a long time, and now she's getting out because she's doing stuff for him. I don't really know. It sounds like there's a lot going on. I love Sarah J. Maas's romance, so I'm interested to see what her world building here is going to be. But I have all 8 of the series on this list, so most of this TBR is Throne of Glass. But I want to know. I want to know what it's about. The next 2 are part of the same series. So we have books 2 and 3 of the Gallagher's of Ardmore Trilogy by Nora Roberts. We have Tears of the Moon and then Heart of the Sea. I read the very first book earlier this year as part of my like recommendations video that I'm kind of series that I'm doing here this year. Really enjoyed that one, and I love the first one so much that I really want to get around to these 2 because they follow the same family, and it's these 3 siblings, and each story is one of the sibling stories, and I just fell head over heels for the world and the characters, and we meet our main 2 female leads in this story in the first one, so it's kind of like this little friend group, and I really enjoy that. So I want to see where we're going to go, because I just really, really enjoyed the first one, and I love a good Nora Roberts book, and hopefully because I do have another series by Nora Roberts that I've recently finished. I'm hoping that this will be one of the other ones that I get around to very, very soon, because I am becoming a fan of her writing, and these two just genuinely sound good, and I'm excited. So fingers crossed. The next one I don't actually have a copy of yet, but I will have a copy of it, and that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is her most recent book that came out sometime this summer. I can't remember exactly when it came out. A lot of people have enjoyed this one. I have read almost all of her books. There's still one of them that I haven't read yet, but I've loved all of them, and I'm just waiting for this one to come out in paperback so I can add it to my Emily Henry collection, which is right there. And I've heard amazing things. Like, a lot of people have told me to read this book, and I very much want to. So from what I can remember about this series, we follow our main two characters who are dating, and there's this group of friends of theirs that all go to the same cabin during the summer. And so either at the beginning of the book or right before the book starts, these two people actually break up. And this is the last time that they're going to be able to go to this cabin specifically. I can't remember what it is, if the cabin is being shut down or if they're all just going their separate ways, but this is going to be the last summer. So they don't want to make it weird or anything and kind of put a like a bad vibe on the whole thing. So they just decide to pretend to still be dating while they're at this cabin with their friends, just to like make it through the week. And of course that's not going to go well, because it's going to be like second chance romance and fake dating all at once, and I'm very excited about it. But I do love a good Emily Henry book, and this just happens to be our most recent one, and I'm very interested in it. The next book is one that I've had on, I can't even count how many TBRs at this point, and I have not given it the time of day yet, so hopefully soon, because it sounds very good, and that is The Double Vice, and this is by Chris Holcomb. I was gifted this from my husband a couple of years ago, and I still haven't read it yet. I've read most of the things that he's given me, I think. Not all of them. But this one is like the one that's been on my shelves the longest. It's a like 20s, like roaring 20s murder mystery queer story. So we follow our main character, Dash Parker, who is in charge of a New York City club. It's during Prohibition, and one of his patrons ends up being murdered, and he is kind of picked as like the main suspect, and he's like, but I didn't do it. So he kind of goes down a rabbit hole and tries to figure out what happened. So it's a like murder mystery story, and it just sounds really good. I love the Roaring 20s vibe, and I really, really, really want to get to it, but I keep not doing it. So maybe by putting it on this video or on this list, I'll do it. We can hope. The next one is by an author that I've collected all of her stuff, but I've only read one thing, and I just really, really need to read more. And that is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. So this is the first book I think she's ever written. I believe this is her debut. I read her most recent one, The No-Show, and I really, really enjoyed it. And this is the one out of all of her books that is calling to me the most. They all sound interesting, but this one is calling to me the most. So that's why this one specifically is on this list. I think it's going to be really fun. We follow our main two characters, Tiffany and Leon. They are sharing an apartment. One of them works during the day and one of them works during the night, so they've never actually met. They're never like in the apartment at the same time. They just communicate via post-it and like sticky note and like notes that they leave each other. And I believe it's a romance between the two of them, just based on everything I've heard, and also Beth O'Leary as a writer. So I don't know, it sounds really fun. I know that some people really, really enjoy this book, and some people do not, but I just think it sounds very interesting, and I would very much like to get around to it. Another one is a sequel, and also the final book in this series. I read the first one, and that is Heart of a Sun Warrior, and it is by Sulin Tan. This is the sequel to Daughter of a Moon Goddess. This is my beautiful fairy edition. Isn't it stunning? I read Daughter of a Moon Goddess relatively soon, I think, after it came out, and I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. It did kind of have an end, but the epilogue kind of left some questions. So I knew going into it there was going to be a sequel, but I knew there was only 2 books. So I went ahead and picked up a special edition to match the other one, and it has not been read yet. Surprise. So I really want to get around to this before I forget everything from the first book. It's not all gone. There still is stuff there, but it's starting to go. So if I hold out much longer, I'm afraid I'm not going to remember much. And I do remember really enjoying the first one. I thought it was very well done. So I want to get around to this one. and I just have it. So this one's on this list as well. The next one is part of a very long series, but I only put one on here because they're addictive and I think I'll like fly through them relatively quickly. And that is Beautiful Stranger. This is the second full-length book by Christina Lauren in the Beautiful Bastards series. There is like, I think 4 or 5 full-length books and a bunch of novellas. So basically there's a novella between each book. So I've read the first book and the first novella. So they follow the same world and the same company, but it's different. Each book is a different set of characters, and then the novellas kind of follow everybody. So this one follows Sarah, who is escaping a cheating ex, and so she moves to New York City looking for an exciting new adventure, and runs into this beautiful stranger who happens to be this guy named Max. It's their story. I really enjoyed the first one. Like I said, these are kind of very addictive office smutty romances, and I would love to read all of them, but I really just need to start reading them. Like for a while I wasn't reading them because I hadn't started collecting everything yet, and I really had only collected like a couple of things here and there, but it wasn't in order. But now I actually have most of them, I think. I don't have, I think, the last full length and maybe a couple of the novellas near the end, but at least like going forward I've got most things now. So I just need to start them, and I love them, so I'm very excited about this. This one actually I think was a friend. Yeah, this is a gift from my friend Teresa, who has a channel, so I'll link her down below. And I haven't read it yet. Surprise. So I would love to get around to this one to just kind of like start reading those again, you know, because there's so many. The next 3 are part of the same series. I haven't started the series at all, and I really need to dive more into this author's work because I have like 7. I have 7 books by this author, and I've literally read one. So we gotta fix this, and that is this series by Ben Alderson, which is the Dragori series, I think is how you pronounce it. So this is a elfish male fantasy romance. It starts with Cloaked in Shadow. We have Poisoned in Light, and then the third one is Found in Night. So I don't know if I have all of them, but I definitely have the first one on Audible, and I loved his writing, and the fact that these are like fae, elvish, like that kind of vibe is definitely my thing. I believe this is the debut series by this author too, if I am correct. So it's just these 3. I have all of them. Like I said, I've got so many books by this author, and he keeps putting things out, and I keep buying them and being interested in them because everything he writes sounds so good, but I just need to actually read things that I have on my shelves instead of continuing to buy things because I just have a problem. But yes, so it's about a guy named Zachary, who is taken into an elvish capital where he's forced into being part of this new legion of shapeshifters, but he isn't a shapeshifter. In truth, he doesn't know what he is. So he's basically taken into this camp and claimed to be this specific magical power, and he doesn't have it, or he doesn't think that he has it. So, yeah, I don't know where it's going to be, but elvish. It's kind of one of those buzzwords for me, so I'm very excited about it. But also, I need to read things by this author because I can't keep collecting and not reading. I mean, I can, but that's just rude. The next one is another one that's part of kind of the duology set, if you will, where I have read the first book, but not the second, of a duology, and it's been out for a while, and I just need to read it. And this one is Misrule, and this is by Heather Walter. This is the second book in the Malice series. I read the first one whenever it came out a couple of years ago. I pre-ordered this one. I was so excited about it, and then I didn't read it. But this is a sapphic Sleeping Beauty reimagined kind of story, and it's very good. So the first one follows our main character Alice, who is a dark grace, and in this world people come to the light graces for like potions and skills and things of that nature that are going to benefit them, and they go to the dark grace for like curses and things like that. And so people look very badly upon her, but she runs into this girl named Briar, who is the princess, and she is part of this curse where like if she doesn't, something's gonna happen if she doesn't find like her true love by age 18. I think maybe she's gonna die or something like that, and so she enlists Alice's help to find that person. And then of course there's more to it than that. There was a huge big thing that happened at the end of the first book. Like, it's been a while since I read the first book, and I have a very vivid memory of what happened in that book, which is almost unheard of for me. So I really need to dive into the second one at some point, because I have it and I'm very interested in it. I'm just not reading it, which is a theme in this video. So another book that I just need to get to. The next one is very similar to The Double Vice in the fact that it has been on so many TBRs, specifically fall TBRs, and that is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. And the sad thing about this is I definitely started it. I made it 44 pages into it. Like, there's still a bookmark in here and everything, but there's a lot to this. It's mixed media. It's basically, the idea behind this is that there's a guy who, his name is Roderick Tanner, QC, and he is assigned 2 law students, Charlotte and Femi, to the case of this small town murder. And the case file is this book. So he's given this book. And so you as the reader are basically along with these law students trying to figure out what's going on. And it's all set in, like, there are emails, there are texts back and forth, there are like articles, and like just a bunch of paper, and also like notes from the 2 law students to each other. So it's like they're trying to figure something out, because like someone was convicted of this crime, but the law professor doesn't think that they did it, and so he's trying to figure out, you know, who did it. And so I have even recommended this to people, and I still haven't read it. So I'm hoping to read this one soonish, because I've started it. So I'm gonna have to go back to the beginning, because I've forgotten most of it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take that bookmark out. But it's like a nice little murder mystery. It feels like a nice fall book. So I always wait for fall, and then I don't read it. Although last year I did start it. So I mean, we're going in the right direction, kind of. Another one that I don't own is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. So I do have this entire trilogy on audiobook on Audible. It was like on sale a few months ago, and so I picked it up because I am genuinely very curious about it. I have read the first book and the other duology that this author has written that I'm now blanking on what the heck that was called. Oh no, crap. Anyway, so I have read something else by this author, and I have enjoyed that book, and I've heard good things about this one, but I'd like to start this. Like, that's why there's only one book and not the entire trilogy on this list, because I want to start this and see if it's my thing. Like I said, I've heard good things about it. It's kind of one of those staples that a lot of people have read on YouTube and just kind of in the bookish world. So I don't know, but I'd like to have started it. I don't remember what it's about though. I feel like most people know what it's about, so I'm not going to be too worried about that, but I've forgotten most things. And it's like a very popular series, so I want to know why everyone's excited about it. So I'd like to at least start this series. And then another one that I don't have, actually I have a couple here that I don't have, is The Deal, and I can't remember who wrote this, but I know Kennedy is in the name somewhere. I had this on Kindle like a long time ago. I got like a free ebook a while ago before she got super popular, and then I actually do, I think, have the audiobook online, but it's one of those like college smutty romances. I think it's set around a sport, I think hockey maybe, but it's this deal between 2 people on campus. I think tutoring is involved, and he's helping her out socially. I don't know, but I've heard really good things about this, and a lot of the people who enjoy the level of spice that I do have really enjoyed this. So another series, I'm not sure I want to continue with the entire series, but I definitely want to read at least this one. And then another one is Jade City as well. So I again have this series. I think I have all 3 of them on audiobook. Again, it came, like, Audible does these deals where they like put the series out and they make them all like $5 instead of the like $15 or $20 that they normally are, and then I get hooked and I buy the entire series. So I did that with Jade City as well, and I've heard good things. Another kind of fantasy that a lot of people have read and loved. I know it's like a political fantasy of sorts. It revolves around like the jade trade of sorts, and I know it's fantastical, but I'm not sure why it's fantastical, so there's a lot with this one. I'm doing very good at describing these, but I want to start this one as well. Another thriller that I would like to read soon is Killers of a Certain Age, and this is by Diana Rayburn. This one came out last year. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people talked about it. I put it on, I think, my fall TBR last year, and I just didn't get around to it. So I think it sounds fun. It talks about these 4 women who are in their 60s. Yes, they're all 60, and they are part of this organization of assassins, and they basically go off to like a retirement getaway, but the company they work for kind of sends someone to kill them. So it's them trying to figure out what's going on. I know there's a lot of conversation between like the new and the old way of doing things. So I know there's going to be like a generational gap conversation as well, but it just sounds good and fun. And honestly, can I say goofy about a book about assassins? That's what I feel like it's going to be. So yeah, I don't know. It just sounds good. So I'd like to get around to it soon. And the very last book on this list is An Enchantment of Ravens, and this is by Margaret Rogerson. This is a YA fantasy romance about fae. And I read Sorcery of Thorns by this author and really enjoyed it, which is why I have the second one by her. And I just think this is going to be really good. It's, again, fae. So I've heard that, like, it's very simple. It's a standalone, and I really want to get around to it because, like I said, I read the first one, or not the first one. I read another book by this author, and I would like to have read this one as well because I've heard good things. But it follows our main character, who is a painter, and she paints a fae prince, I think. And in this world, you are not allowed to have like emotion, like faes aren't allowed to have emotion, and she accidentally paints sorrow into his eyes, and so he gets really, really mad and brings her to his world for like a trial of sorts. So I don't know, it sounds fun, and I do enjoy a good fae story, so I want to see if the other book by this author is just as good as the other one I read. And that's it. That is a list of 30 books that I would like to get to in the next couple of years. We'll see. We will see, won't we? Because we could have a year like this where I am completely derailed mid-year and I only read one very specific type of book. So we'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video. I would love to know your thoughts. If there's one that I should prioritize over the other, let me know your thoughts on that as well. I'd love to know all of your bookist things. And if you made a list like this or are thinking about a list like this, what kinds of books would you put on it? But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there as well as other fun bookish links, so check all that out. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!